the opioid epidemic is moving into Black communities. Now, you don't hear, oh, white people are pushing the opioid epidemic into Black communities. Black people are the victims of white people. You never hear that.
Yeah.
You never hear that the opioid epidemic is because white people are genetically predisposed to drug addiction. I don't know if you've come across Carl Hart's book.
Yeah, Dr. Carl Hart at Columbia, yeah.
Yes. Okay. So I really admire him. I blurbed his book. Let's see my blurb on the back of his book.
Yeah.
And we've had a long association over the punishment that Black women experience for using drugs, for being pregnant and using drugs, and also having their children taken from them. And I really admire how he is willing to say this idea that drug use is always bad, that drugs are always addicting, that they ruin people's lives is just false. It's false. But there's such a stigma around drug use, and then it's used in racist ways on top of it. So it's the combination of the stigma around drug use in addition to the racism that comes together to form this powerful way of oppressing Black communities that is, also combined with stereotypes about Black people as being prone to drug use. And by the way, that's one of the reasons why we see the opioid epidemic beginning in white communities, because it was marketed as a drug for white people. And Black people had a hard time getting prescriptions for painkillers, opioid painkillers, because of the stereotype that Black people are prone to drug addiction. And so you have a situation where opioids are being overprescribed to white people, based on a marketing campaign to white people. And then you've got Black people who are in pain and not able to get opioid treatment. You can read about the stories of Black people with sickle cell anemia who are told they cannot get pain treatment because they're seen as drug seekers.
Yeah.
I often cite a study that was done of Black children with severe pain from appendicitis, diagnosed appendicitis in the emergency room. And white children in the same situation were 3 times more likely to be prescribed opioid treatment than Black children. We're talking about little children in pain.
So in a way, poorly informed racial decisions by doctors may have saved a lot of Black people from the opioid epidemic, the opioid crisis.
That's one way you can say it.
Yeah, the silver lining of racism.
I prefer to point out the harms that it caused.
Yes.
And all the Black people who would have benefited from opioid painkillers who were denied it. That's really, because right now, guess what? And this is something also that you don't hear because of the differing stereotypes. The opioid epidemic is moving into Black communities. Now, you don't hear, oh, white people are pushing the opioid epidemic into Black communities. Black people are the victims of white people. You never hear that.
Yeah.
You never hear that the opioid epidemic is because white people are genetically predisposed to drug addiction. But they'll say that about Black people.
Yeah.
So it's such, when you talk about drugs, it is such a telling example of how racist stereotypes about drugs, about poor people, all of these myths have caused such devastation. And I'm glad that you're bringing it up on your show because, and doing it in an honest way, because if you're honest about it, it's very obvious that wars on drugs are just ways to oppress people. They're not really about improving people's health. They're not really about fixing social problems. They're just manipulated to oppress the most disadvantaged people, and the most privileged people go on living their lives the way they want to. And the burden is then placed on the people who are most oppressed by race and gender and class hierarchies in this country.